I'm president of the Jayne Koskinas Ted Giovanis Foundation for Health and Policy, and I'd like to welcome you all. And more specifically, I'd like to welcome Dr. Andy Ewald of Johns Hopkins. Andy, would you please introduce yourself a little bit more about what you do at Hopkins, and then we'll get into the questions.
Sure. I'm Andrew Ewald. I'm professor and director of the Department of Cell Biology at Johns Hopkins Medical School, and I'm the founding director of the Giovanis Institute for Translational Cell Biology. My laboratory focuses on breast cancer metastasis.
Very good. We have a few questions for you today, and one of them is what is the key question your research is trying to answer?
So fundamentally, my laboratory is trying to understand how breast cancer cells are able to leave the primary tumor, escape to a distant organ like the lungs or the bone, and form new tumors called metastatic tumors. We then seek to use that knowledge to develop new therapies that will improve patient lives.
Very good. How has your research approach impacted your life outside the lab?
So I would say my research approach is very all-consuming. So I would say when I wake up in the morning, I'm thinking about metastasis research. When I'm driving home, I'm thinking about what are the experiments we're going to plan for the next week, what's the next manuscript, how are we going to fund and lead that research project. So I would say it takes some discipline now to really keep my home life and my family life. Balance is not maybe quite the right word, but to keep it really, keep everything going well on that front, because the research is very all-consuming.
Yeah, it's about keeping everything in perspective, I guess.
That's right.
In its spot. And more of a question about us. What has surprised you most about working with the JKTG Foundation?
I think it's your focus on rational risk, right? So from our first conversations, you've been very clear that you're trying to get the highest impact from your investments. And you made a couple of points that made it really attractive for us to work with you. This is from those first meetings in the Amigos workshop back in, I believe, 2017. So you said that you really view basic research, fundamental research into how cells interact, how cells work, how they communicate with each other, as being a very high impact place for investment, because it affects so many downstream ideas that can ultimately lead to clinical trials. The second thing is that from the beginning and to this day, we've had fantastic conversations about how do we design experiments that allow us to really change the paradigm, to really change how people think about and could treat breast cancer, and to be willing to embrace failure, right? We'll take a big risk, we'll test our best ideas, and if they don't work out, we redeploy the resources to our new best idea, rather than playing it safe and working on incremental research.
Yeah, and I think that's what sets a lot of your thinking, your personal thinking, apart from a lot of other folks. You embrace this. And what about collaborations? I know you have a very collaboratory attitude or approach to things.
Absolutely. This has been another point of very successful intersection. So I've worked in multiple fields. I originally trained in physics as an undergraduate, did some research in that area. And then I worked in biochemistry and molecular biophysics as a PhD student at Caltech. And then I went on to UCSF to work on epithelial biology and cancer. So I took stepwise transitions from being in the very hard physical sciences towards cell and tissue biology and application to disease. And so for me, that just seemed natural. It was how I did it. That's not always how funding agencies have viewed a natural or normal trajectory towards cancer research. So we've really been able to hit it off, and we've been able to identify projects in our laboratory that were really appropriate for JKTG funding, but we've also been able to collaborate to identify projects in other labs at other universities that were a good fit for JKTG funding, in part because of our shared emphasis on multidisciplinary thinking and interdisciplinary thinking, that you really benefit from getting the best minds at the table and having them bring different perspectives to the problem of breast cancer research.
And I think in the end, that's sort of what leads us to some degree of success. Not us particularly, but I think the whole research community. The more we envision, and the more we think that we learn from each other, we learn and grow from each other, and we have different ideas about how to get at the same question. I think that's really a key to moving forward.